Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of season 2 of RETRY. Today we're looking back at the game I never thought I would review. Super Mario Bros., released in 1985 by Nintendo for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
You know, I made a promise to myself when I started doing this that I would not review this game. Don't get the idea that I don't love it. I promise you that I do. I think it's one of the greatest video games ever created for any system. But that's the problem. Everything that anyone could ever say on this subject matter has already been said, and I assure you, I don't play the game well enough to warrant you wanting to see it. So what made a guy like me go back on his word 37 episodes later? Well, I'll tell you. The last episode was all about the video game crash in 1983 and Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. Well, this time around, I really wanted to talk about the rise of Nintendo in '85. And that's really impossible to do without talking a little bit about Super Mario Bros., which ended up being their most popular launch title and their second best-selling game of all time. Actually, this was their best-selling game of all time until very recently, where it finally got pushed out of the way by Wii Sports. But I digress. Let's talk about the plot. You know the plot. Save the princess. Okay, let's talk about gameplay. Well, it's legendary, and it's been copied for 25 years. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you've already played Super Mario Bros., and you don't need a guy like me to tell you how to play it. Actually, if you're like me, you probably remember playing hundreds, hell, even thousands of hours on one of the greatest side-scrolling 2D games of all time. So where can you get your hands on this amazing game to play it again? Well, it's available on almost every console that Nintendo has ever released. So, enjoy! Now that we got all the usual retry stuff out of the way, the story, the gameplay, my feelings, and where to find it, let's move on to the trivia. Maybe, just maybe I can tell you something that you haven't already heard about this great game. It all starts with Shigeru Miyamoto-san wanting to make a Popeye game for Nintendo, but they couldn't secure the rights, so he ends up making Donkey Kong featuring Jumpman, Kong, and Pauline. So Miyamoto-san had an idea that he would create a single character and use that character throughout a variety of different video games. He got the idea from Alfred Hitchcock inserting himself into his movies. Now, instead of calling him Jumpman, his initial idea was to call the character Mr. Video. Miyamoto-san himself admitted in modern interviews that if he had actually named Mario Mr. Video, he probably would have disappeared from video game history forever and wouldn't have been anywhere near as popular as he became. When Nintendo was localizing Donkey Kong and other games for the United States, they got behind in their back rent, and their landlord, whose name was Mario Segale, got in a huge argument with Minoru Arakawa-san demanding he pay up. That's right, kids, because of a stupid argument over back rent, that's how Mario got his name. Creators Shigeru Miyamoto-san and Takashi Tezuka-san both explain the challenges of creating the initial first level of Super Mario Bros. The first mushroom enemy is a Goomba, and basically it's very easy to kill the Goomba, while at the same time very difficult to avoid the mushroom power-up. They did this on purpose. The player would immediately get that reinforcement that the Goombas are bad, but the mushrooms are good. Mario's entire legendary physical appearance was all based on graphical limitations. He had a hat because they didn't want to draw and animate the hair, he had a mustache to accentuate his nose and make it so they didn't have to draw in a mouth over and over, and he had overalls so it was clear to see that his arms were moving. Also in development, when the game's creators handed over sketches of Bowser, the main villain, to animator Yoichi Kotabe-san, well, you know what? He misinterpreted them. Bowser was originally supposed to be an ox. When Kotabe-san saw the sketches, he interpreted the character to be a turtle and not an ox, and the modern Bowser was born. One last thing on Bowser, people. He's not a dragon. He's a turtle. Hasn't anybody here seen Gamera?
Hey, Snappy!
Sounds like the Vienna Boys Choir sings songs of Gamera.
It's the cast of Oliver, I think. Senorita Gamera?
Senorita Gamera.
Oh.
Whoa!
Go off the arm there.
You die, Joe! Thank you.
This is really a fun song. Hey! Gamera can do the Hochiku. Woo!
To give you an idea of the lasting impact of Super Mario Bros., the main theme, known as the ground theme, was composed by Koji Kondo-san, who did all the music for the game. It's one of the most recognizable pieces of video game music ever recorded. It actually stayed on the Billboard ringtone charts for 125 weeks. So now we sit, more than 25 years later, looking at a game that's just as important and just as beloved as it's ever been. Yes, we're still playing with power.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyromites, when you shoot the light-sensing zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe set. Batteries not included, other games sold separately. Your parents help you hook it up.
Nintendo, a quick-loading cartridge system with over 60 of the hottest titles ever. Games like Batman, a life-and-death struggle to end the evil Joker's reign of terror and save Gotham City. Games like Super Mario Brothers, a battle to rescue the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa Turtles. Go for the joystick for extra control, or go to infrared for remote control. The hottest games are on Nintendo, the world's #1 game system.
So how did we get from 1983, where economists thought that the video game industry was dead, to today, where in North America alone, it is a $17 billion industry? It all started quietly in 1983 when Nintendo released the Famicom, the family computer. The Famicom had great early success in Japan, and Nintendo wanted to sell the system to the West. So what does Nintendo do? Well, they enter in talks with Atari. They sit down and try to find a way for Atari to release the Famicom under their name to break into the US market. By 1984, the previous successful president of Atari, Ray Kassar, has been booted from the company, and Atari's in total upheaval at this point. Atari sits back, listens to Nintendo's sales pitch, and then promptly tells them to get bent. Why would they do that? The industry's crashing around them, and they have a third-party company willing to go into business with them. Why would Atari turn their backs on Nintendo? That's because of the ColecoVision. Yeah, seriously. So Nintendo released a version of Donkey Kong, their most popular arcade smash hit at the time, on the ColecoVision, and Atari was holding a grudge against that. So because of this one stupid game release, Atari makes a rash decision that forever keeps them from being the top video game player ever again. The rest is history. Nintendo moves on without Atari and creates the original Nintendo, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, and unveils it June 1985 at the Consumer Electronics Show. And now it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy my horrible gameplay. It's time for the big fail. I'm not really what you would call a precision jumper. I make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, and just when you think I can't possibly screw it up any worse, something like this happens. Ugh, just go into the light, Mario. So for some asinine reason, I decide I'm gonna get the extra life here, even though I already have like 45 lives from the World 3-1 trick. Ah, perfect. Exactly as I planned. Nintendo makes some very specific choices to try to distance themselves from the failures of the Atari 2600. They showcase the NES as an entertainment system rather than a video game console. They designed and released it with Rob the Robot so that they could market it to stores like Toys R Us as a toy and not a video game console. Nintendo also pioneered licensing restrictions, including a lockout chip, to keep third-party developers from releasing titles that they didn't approve of. To keep the market from being flooded with games like what happened to the Atari 2600, Nintendo also restricted each of their third-party developers to only 5 video game releases a year for the NES. Nintendo effectively used these strategies, along with their Nintendo seal of approval, to help consumers regain confidence in the video game industry. The Nintendo Entertainment System had a limited release in '85, but was released nationwide in the US in 1986 to massive success.
Now it's time for the answers no one should have asked for. It's 2 horrible questions with Tony B. All right. Let's see what we got up first, ladies and gentlemen. First up, we have Rufus from Tickfaw, Louisiana, who asks, what is Mario and Luigi's last name? Oh, God. You know, the first question really keeps setting the bar for stupid. Rufus, what is your problem? Why does it matter? What, you owe him money? You gotta mail him a check or something? I mean, why do you need to know his last name? Is it some horrible fanfic that you're writing? Really, what is your problem? You know what, I'm gonna answer your question, but this next clip, just remember, Rufus, you brought it on yourself.
Name? Mario. Last name?
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi?
No, Luigi Mario.
Okay, look, how many Marios are there between the two of you?
There's three. There's Mario and Luigi Mario.
Mike! Up these Marios around the side.
Oh my God. Okay, let's move on. Question number 2. Can't be any worse, right? Hope springs eternal. All right, question 2 comes from Etopia in Nutsville, Virginia, who asks, is the Super Mario Brothers game appropriate for children? You know, my knee-jerk reaction to this is a resounding yes. Of course, it's a classic children's game. But you know what? After further investigation, I found out that this was most definitely not the case. Do not let your children play this game. Watch this and it'll explain why.
Let's take a look at one of the lesser-known sentences in the instruction booklet to Super Mario Bros. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even field horsehair plants, and the Mushroom Kingdom fell into ruin. That's right. The bricks are people. Darling, he's here.
We're safe.
The hero Mario. He's come to save the mushroom people. Mein Leben!
Murderer! Ah! Mama? Oh!
In closing, I'm going to talk a little bit about an interview I read on us.we.com with Tezuka-san, co-creator of Super Mario Bros. He was being asked questions about how he got into the industry in his first game with Shigeru Miyamoto-san, and it was a release for the Famicom in 1984 called Devil World. Now, Devil World was a dot-eating chase style game, so the interviewer asked, had you ever heard of Pac-Man? And much to everyone's surprise, Tezuka-san said no. When I got into the video game business, I had never heard of Pac-Man, and it just blew me away. Tezuka-san is the current head of Nintendo's software development department. He is the co-creator of Super Mario Bros. And one of the most famous video game developers in the world, and when he broke into the video game business, he had never even played a game of Pac-Man. You know what, though? I think he did all right.
Thanks for watching. For VideoGameSaga.com, this is Tony B, and I'm out. Retry? You know it.